The piercing crack of a single gunshot echoed through Ventura's Main Street, freezing every soul in their tracks as Rose Nichols stared in horror at the man who had just saved her life and doomed her reputation forever. It was 1879, and Ventura, California, perched between the rugged mountains and the vast Pacific, was still finding its footing on the edge of America's frontier. The coastal town had grown from a humble mission outpost to a bustling center for ranching and trade, but beneath its veneer of progress, it remained as unforgiving as the rest of the West when it came to matters of honor and reputation. Rose wiped her trembling hands on her apron as she stood over the body of Walter Green, the most respected businessman in Ventura County. His blood pooled on the wooden boardwalk outside her modest millinery shop, seeping between the planks while stunned townsfolk began to gather. Her ears rang from the gunshot that had ended his life just moments ago. Miss Nichols stopped him, someone whispered. "She shot Walter Green." "No," Rose's voice cracked. "I didn't shoot anyone. He tried to force himself on me in my shop." "This man," she gestured to the stranger lying wounded against the hitching post, "he saved me." But the murmuring crowd grew hostile. Walter Green was a pillar of the community, a church deacon, a generous donor to town causes, a family man with a beaming wife and 3 cherubic children. Rose was just the milliner, a 24-year-old unmarried woman who had arrived in Ventura only 8 months prior. "I saw him draw on Green," a voice called out. She was leading him on, and when Green's wife came down the street, she panicked and signaled this drifter to shoot. Sheriff Thomas Abernathy pushed through the gathering crowd, his weathered face grave as he surveyed the scene. His deputy was already kneeling beside the wounded stranger whose gun had fired the fatal shot. "He's alive, Sheriff," the deputy announced. Took a bullet to the shoulder when Green returned fire. The sheriff's eyes found Rose standing pale and shaking. "Miss Nichols, I think you'd best come with me." "Sheriff, please," Rose pleaded. "Mr. Green attacked me. This man was passing by when I screamed. He only tried to help." But the sheriff's expression remained stony. "Madam, Walter Green was respected in this town. These are serious allegations. We'll sort this out at my office." As Sheriff Abernathy led her away, Rose caught sight of Mrs. Green rushing toward her husband's body, her anguished wails cutting through the air. The crowd parted for her, faces hard with judgment as they watched Rose being escorted to jail. She heard the whispers harlot, temptress, murderer, and felt each word like a physical blow. At the jailhouse, Rose sat on a hard wooden chair, her fingers twisting the fabric of her skirt. "Sheriff, I'm telling the truth. Walter Green has been making inappropriate advances for weeks. Today he came in just before closing, and when I refused him again, he became violent." The sheriff leaned against his desk. "Miss Nichols, you're accusing a dead man, a respected citizen, of attempted violation. That's mighty convenient." "It's the truth," Rose insisted, tears threatening. "And this drifter just happened to be passing by at the exact moment." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "What's his name?" "I don't know," Rose admitted. "I'd never seen him before," the sheriff sighed. "We'll question him when Doc Winters gets that bullet out. Until then, I suggest you consider your story carefully. False accusations against a man like Walter Green won't be taken lightly in Ventura." He didn't lock her in a cell, but the message was clear: she was not to leave town, and her reputation was already in tatters. That evening, Rose sat alone in her small apartment above her shop, listening to the sounds of Ventura settling into night. She had come here seeking a fresh start after her parents' deaths had left her alone in the world. The millinery shop had been her salvation, purchased with her modest inheritance. She had worked tirelessly, earning respect for her craftsmanship and business acumen until today. A soft knock at her back door startled her. Rose hesitated, fear making her heart race. When she finally opened it, she found Eliza Winters, the doctor's wife, standing there with a basket. "I brought you some supper," Eliza said quietly. "And news. The stranger is stable. My husband removed the bullet, but he's still unconscious." "Thank you," Rose whispered, accepting the basket. "Does anyone believe me?" Eliza's eyes were kind but troubled. "People are confused, Rose. Walter Green was a respected man, I know," Rose finished bitterly. "But respectability can hide many sins." "My husband said there were. Marks on your arms, bruises," Eliza said carefully. Rose pulled up her sleeve, revealing the purpling fingerprints where Green had grabbed her. "He was going to force himself on me, Eliza. I screamed, and that man heard. He came in and told Green to step away. Green drew his gun, but the stranger was faster." Eliza nodded slowly. "I believe you, Rose. So does my husband. But the town." She trailed off, looking pained. "Mrs. Green is devastated. She's claiming you were trying to seduce her husband, that you've been pursuing him for months." Rose sank into a chair, despair washing over her. "How can I fight such lies?" "It was her husband who pursued me, who wouldn't take no for an answer." "The stranger's testimony will be crucial," Eliza said. "If he confirms your story, if he lives," Rose said grimly. "And if anyone believes an unknown drifter over the sainted memory of Walter Green." Over the next days, Rose's life transformed into a waking nightmare. Women crossed the street to avoid her. The regulars who had frequented her shop stopped coming. Her window was broken one night by thrown rocks, and Harlot was painted across her door. She cleaned it off before dawn, tears streaming down her face. Sheriff Abernathy questioned her twice more, his skepticism evident. The town had all but convicted her in its collective mind, and the only person who could corroborate her story remained unconscious in Doc Winter's back room. 5 days after the shooting, Rose was arranging what little stock remained when the bell above her shop door jingled. She looked up to find Sarah Green, Walter's widow, standing there, her face etched with grief and hate. "You killed my husband," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Mrs. Green, I did not kill your husband. I did not want anything to do with him," Rose said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "He attacked me." "Liar," Sarah hissed. "Walter was a good man. Everyone knows what kind of woman you are, setting up your shop, living alone, tempting respectable men." "I came to Ventura to build a life after losing my parents," Rose countered. "I never encouraged your husband's attentions." "You'll pay for this," Sarah promised. "I'll see this town run you out before Walter is cold in his grave." After Sarah left, Rose closed the shop early, unable to face the possibility of more confrontations. As she locked the door, she noticed a tall figure limping slowly down the boardwalk toward her. Her heart stuttered when she recognized the stranger who had saved her, his arm in a sling, his face pale but determined. He stopped before her, removing his hat with his good hand. He was younger than she had initially thought, perhaps 30, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. "Miss Nichols," he said, his voice low and rough. "I'm Patrick Lawson. I believe we have some matters to discuss." Rose glanced around nervously at the townsfolk watching them. "You shouldn't be seen with me, Mr. Lawson. It won't help your situation." A faint smile touched his lips. "Madam, I've been shot, accused of murder, and spent 5 days unconscious in a town I was just passing through. My situation can hardly get worse." Despite everything, Rose felt a bubble of hysterical laughter rise in her throat. "Perhaps we should talk inside." Once in the privacy of her shop, Rose offered Patrick a seat and a glass of water, which he accepted gratefully. "The doctor said you saved my life," he said. "Kept checking on me, changed my bandages when his wife couldn't." Rose shrugged. "You saved mine first. It seemed only fair." Patrick studied her face for a long moment. "Sheriff's been questioning me since I woke up, wanted to know our connection." "And what did you tell him?" "The truth. That I was riding through, heard a woman scream, and found you struggling with Green. That he drew on me when I intervened." His gray eyes held her steadily. "I told him I believe your account of what happened." Those simple words I believe you nearly undid Rose completely. She blinked rapidly to hold back tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "but I'm afraid it won't matter much. Walter Green was practically a saint in this town." "No man is a saint, Miss Nichols," Patrick said grimly. "And I've got some experience recognizing the type who hides his true nature behind respectability. The sheriff says there will be an inquest. Mrs. Green is demanding justice," Rose explained. "Your testimony will help, but folks would rather believe a local pillar of the community than a drifter and a woman alone," Patrick finished. "I'm familiar with how these things go." Rose regarded him curiously. "You speak as if from experience, Mr. Lawson." A shadow passed over his face. "Let's just say I understand what it's like to be on the wrong side of public opinion." He shifted, wincing slightly as the movement jostled his wounded shoulder. "I've told the sheriff I'll be staying until this matter is resolved." "You don't have to do that," Rose protested. "You've already risked enough." Patrick Lawson's expression was determined. "Miss Nichols, where I come from, a man stands by the truth. No matter how inconvenient, I won't leave you to face this alone." 2 days later, the inquest began in the town hall. It seemed all of Ventura had crowded in to witness the proceedings. Rose sat rigidly beside Eliza Winters, feeling the weight of hostile stares. Patrick Lawson sat several rows behind her, his tall frame unmistakable even in the packed room. Judge Henry Blackwell presided, his face impassive as Sheriff Abernathy presented the facts as they were known. When Rose was called to testify, her legs felt like water as she made her way to the front. "Miss Nichols," Judge Blackwell began, "please tell this court in your own words what transpired on the afternoon of May 15th. Rose took a deep breath and recounted how Walter Green had entered her shop just before closing, how his usual flirtations had turned menacing, how he had grabbed her when she rebuffed him, and how Patrick Lawson had intervened after hearing her cry for help. "Mr. Green drew his weapon first," she concluded. "Mr. Lawson fired in self-defense." The cross-examination was brutal. Edward Bailey, representing the Green family, seemed determined to destroy her character entirely. "Miss Nichols, is it not true that you came to Ventura with no references, no family connections?" "My parents died last year in San Francisco. I came here to start fresh," she answered. "And you set up your business a millinery shop where you receive gentlemen customers alone, where you might entice a respected man like Walter Green." Rose clenched her fists. "I run a respectable business, Mr. Bailey. I never encouraged Mr. Green's attentions. Yet multiple witnesses state they observed you smiling, laughing with Mr. Green when he visited your shop. Were you not leading him on? Basic courtesy to a customer is not an invitation to assault," Rose stated firmly. Despite her pounding heart, Bailey smiled coldly. "Is it not convenient, Miss Nichols, that the only witness to your alleged assault is a drifter who appeared from nowhere and whose background we know nothing about?" When Patrick testified, his calm demeanor and straightforward account seemed to make an impression. He described finding Green assaulting Rose, the confrontation, and the exchange of gunfire. His military background, he had served as a cavalry officer, lent him some credibility, but Bailey was relentless in suggesting collusion. "Mr. Lawson, Why were you in Ventura that day?" "I was passing through on my way to Santa Barbara," Patrick replied evenly. "A fortuitous coincidence for Miss Nichols, wouldn't you say? That a former military man happened to be passing her shop at the exact moment she allegedly needed rescue." Patrick's gaze was steady. "There was nothing alleged about it, sir. I saw Mr. Green attacking her with my own eyes. The inquest stretched over 3 days. Character witnesses for Walter Green painted a picture of an upstanding citizen, devoted husband and father. Only Dr. Winters provided objective evidence supporting Rose's account, testifying about the bruises on her arms and the defensive wounds on her hands. On the final day, the room fell silent as Judge Blackwell prepared to announce his findings. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, this court finds that Walter Green died as a result of a gunshot wound inflicted by Patrick Lawson. However, the circumstances indicate that Mr. Lawson acted in defense of Miss Rose Nichols and in self-defense when Mr. Green drew his weapon. Therefore, no criminal charges will be filed against Mr. Lawson in this matter. A mix of outraged gasps and murmurs filled the room. Sarah Green sobbed loudly, comforted by her family. As to the allegations regarding Mr. Green's character and actions, the judge continued, this court makes no definitive finding. There is insufficient evidence to either fully substantiate or disprove Miss Nichols' claims. This inquest is closed. It was not the vindication Rose had hoped for, but it was not the condemnation she had feared. As the crowd dispersed, she felt numb. The legal danger might have passed, but she knew her reputation in Ventura was irreparably damaged. Outside the town hall, Rose stood alone while Sarah Green was surrounded by supporters. The widow caught Rose's eye, and the look of pure hatred made Rose shiver. "This isn't over," Sarah called out. "You may have fooled the judge, but everyone in this town knows what you are." Rose turned away, fighting tears, and nearly collided with Patrick Lawson. "Don't let them see you cry," he said quietly. "That's what they want." She blinked rapidly. "I'm ruined in this town, Mr. Lawson. No one will come to my shop now. No one will even speak to me." "Then perhaps it's time to consider a change," he suggested. "I heard there's a stagecoach heading north tomorrow morning." Rose looked at him in surprise. "You're suggesting I run away?" "I'm suggesting a strategic retreat," Patrick corrected. "There's no shame in seeking fairer ground." "I invested everything I had in my shop," Rose said, despair creeping into her voice. "I have nowhere to go." Patrick hesitated, then said, "I own a small ranch about 3 days' ride north of here. It's not much, but I've been looking to expand into breeding horses. A business partner with your head for figures could be valuable." Rose studied his face, searching for ulterior motives. "Mr. Lawson, we barely know each other. Why would you offer this?" "Because I know what it's like to be judged unfairly," he answered simply. "And because I believe you, Miss Nichols. That's rarer than you might think." That evening, as Rose packed what little she could carry, Eliza Winters came to say goodbye. "I wish things could be different," Eliza said sadly. "My husband and I would stand by you if you stayed." 2 allies against an entire town isn't much of a fight," Rose replied, folding a dress into her trunk. "Besides, Mr. Lawson's offer makes sense. I can't continue here." Eliza's eyes twinkled with unexpected mischief. "He's quite handsome, your rescuer." Rose felt a blush warming her cheeks. "It's a business arrangement, nothing more." "Of course," Eliza agreed, not sounding convinced at all. She pressed a small package into Rose's hands. "Some medicines, bandages for Mr. Lawson's shoulder, and my address. Write to me, Rose. Let me know you're safe." At dawn, Rose stood outside the stagecoach office with her single trunk and carpetbag. Patrick was already there, his horse saddled and ready. He would ride alongside the coach, he had explained, to give his shoulder more freedom of movement than the cramped coach would allow. As Rose handed her baggage to the driver, she noticed a group gathering across the street. Sarah Green and several others, watching with open hostility. "Leaving town with your accomplice, Miss Nichols," Sarah called. "Running away proves your guilt." Rose straightened her spine and turned to face them. "I'm not running away, Mrs. Green. I'm choosing peace over hatred. You destroyed my family," Sarah spat. "You'll answer for that someday." Patrick moved his horse between Rose and the angry widow. "Madam, your husband made his choices. Miss Nichols and I have made ours. I suggest you make peace with yours." The stagecoach journey was long and uncomfortable, but Rose found an unexpected sense of freedom as Ventura receded behind them. Patrick rode alongside, occasionally coming up to exchange a few words with her through the window. By the second day, she had learned that he had served in the cavalry during the latter years of the Civil War despite his young age, that he had purchased his ranch 5 years ago, and that he lived there alone except for his foreman, Miguel, and Miguel's family. "What made you stop in Ventura that day?" Rose asked during one rest stop. "You said you were heading to Santa Barbara." Patrick hesitated before answering. "I was meeting someone about purchasing breeding stock, but I also had personal business. I was tracking a man, Walter Green." Rose's eyes widened. "You knew him?" "Not personally," Patrick said, his expression hardening. "But I knew of him. 7 months ago, my younger sister Clara worked as a housekeeper for a family in Los Angeles. Green was there on business and he forced himself on her." Rose felt cold despite the warm day. Did she report him? She tried. No one believed her, a servant girl accusing a businessman from a respectable town. The family dismissed her to avoid scandal. Patrick's hands clenched. "Clara took her own life 2 months later. I found her journal afterward with Green's name and details of what he'd done." "So you came to confront him," Rose said softly. "That's why you were in Ventura." Patrick nodded. "I'd been tracking his movements, gathering evidence of similar incidents. I wanted justice through the law if possible, but—" He trailed off. "You were prepared to take justice into your own hands," Rose finished. "I'm not proud of it," Patrick admitted. "But yes, when I heard your scream and saw him attacking you, it was like seeing Clara all over again. I didn't plan what happened, but I can't say I regret stopping him." Rose was silent for a long moment. "I'm sorry about your sister, and I understand why you didn't mention this before. The judge might have viewed your intervention differently. It wouldn't have helped your case to be associated with a man seeking revenge," Patrick agreed. "But I wanted you to know the truth before you committed to coming to my ranch." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Rose saw Patrick not just as her rescuer, but as a man shaped by his own griefs and principles. "Thank you for trusting me with this," she said softly. The stagecoach arrived at the town of Oak Ridge on the 3rd day. It was smaller than Ventura but prosperous-looking, with wide streets and solid buildings. Patrick's ranch, Pine Creek, lay another hour's ride to the east. He hired a wagon to transport Rose and her belongings, and as they left the town behind, the landscape opened up into rolling hills dotted with oak trees and patches of pine forest. "It's beautiful," Rose said, taking in the views. "So different from the coast." "It grows on you," Patrick agreed. "The winters are colder than you're used to, and the summers can be hot, but spring and fall make up for it." When they crested a hill, Rose caught her first sight of Pine Creek Ranch, a substantial main house of weathered wood and stone, a large barn, corrals, and several outbuildings. Smoke curled from the chimney and horses grazed in the nearby pastures. "You said it wasn't much," Rose said accusingly. Patrick looked slightly embarrassed. It's not compared to some spreads, but I've been fortunate. The cavalry taught me about horses, and I've managed to build a decent breeding program. They were greeted by Miguel Hernandez, Patrick's foreman, a dignified man in his 40s with a ready smile, and his wife Luisa, who had prepared the house for Rose's arrival. Their 3 children peeked shyly from behind their mother's skirts. "We are happy you have come, Señorita Nichols," Luisa said warmly. "It will be good to have another woman at Pine Creek." The main house was simply but comfortably furnished, with a large central room that served as both dining room and parlor, a well-equipped kitchen, and several bedrooms. Patrick showed Rose to a room at the eastern end of the house. "I thought you might like this one. It gets the morning sun," he explained. "There's a small room adjacent that could serve as your office or sewing room." Rose was touched by his thoughtfulness. "It's perfect, thank you." That evening, after a welcome dinner prepared by Luisa, Patrick and Rose sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the hills gold and crimson. The air was scented with pine and sage, and the distant nickering of horses created a peaceful backdrop. "We should discuss our arrangement," Patrick said, breaking the comfortable silence. "I meant what I said about a business partnership. Your shop in Ventura was well managed. I saw the books. I could use that kind of organizational skill here." "What exactly did you have in mind?" Rose asked. "I've been focusing on breeding cavalry-type horses, but I want to expand into finer stock carriage horses, ladies' mounts. There's a growing market in San Francisco for quality animals. I know horses, but I'm not much for record-keeping and correspondence with buyers." Rose considered this. "I could handle the business side, accounts, communications, perhaps develop a catalog of your stock." "Exactly," Patrick nodded. "We'd split the profits from the expanded business. You'd have your own income independence." "And my living situation?" Rose asked carefully. "I appreciate your hospitality, but I don't want to be a charity case. Not charity practicality. The ranch is too far from town for daily commuting, and having you here means we can work together efficiently." He hesitated. "If you're concerned about propriety, Luisa and her family live in the house just over there. They've been with me since I bought this place, and they're the soul of discretion." Rose smiled at his consideration for her reputation, what was left of it. "I think we can make this work, Mr. Lawson." "Patrick, please," he said. "If we're to be partners." "Patrick," she agreed. "And I'm Rose." In the weeks that followed, Rose threw herself into learning the horse breeding business. She organized Patrick's haphazard records, created a proper bookkeeping system, and drafted a professional-looking catalog of their stock. Patrick taught her about the different breeds, their characteristics and care, and she soaked up the knowledge eagerly. She also discovered a talent for calming nervous horses. Patrick found her one morning in the stables, speaking softly to a skittish mare that had previously allowed no one but him to approach her. "You have a gift," he said, impressed. "Daisy doesn't trust easily." Rose stroked the mare's nose. "Neither do I anymore. Perhaps we recognize something in each other." As summer progressed into fall, Rose settled into life at Pine Creek. She wrote regularly to Eliza Winters, receiving news of Ventura in return. Walter Green's business dealings were being scrutinized after discrepancies were found in his accounts. Other women had come forward with stories similar to Rose's, though most were dismissed as gossip. Sarah Green had taken her children and moved to her sister's home in San Diego. "It seems the sainted Mr. Green had feet of clay after all," Rose remarked to Patrick after reading Eliza's latest letter. "The truth has a way of emerging eventually," he replied, "though rarely in time for justice." They were sitting in what had become their evening ritual, sharing the day's events on the porch as the sun set. Over the months, Rose had noticed their conversations growing deeper, more personal. She had told him about her childhood in San Francisco, her parents' deaths from influenza, her determination to be independent. He had shared stories of his time in the cavalry, his close relationship with his sister, his dreams for the ranch. She had also noticed other changes, the way her pulse quickened when their hands accidentally touched, how she found herself watching him as he worked with the horses, admiring the strength and gentleness in his movements. She caught him looking at her sometimes with an expression that made her cheeks warm. One crisp October evening, as they sat before a crackling fire in the main room, Patrick said, "I've been invited to show some of our horses at the regional fair in Sacramento next month. It would be a good opportunity to introduce our new breeding stock to potential buyers." "That's wonderful," Rose said enthusiastically. "The catalog will be ready, and I've already had responses to the advertisements I placed." "I'd like you to come with me," Patrick said, watching her face. "As my partner, you should be there to meet the buyers you've been corresponding with." Rose hesitated. It would mean traveling together, staying in Sacramento for several days. "Are you sure that's wise? People might talk." "Let them," Patrick said with unexpected vehemence. "Haven't we both had enough of letting others dictate our choices based on appearances?" Rose studied him, sensing there was more behind his words than the fair invitation. "What is it, Patrick? What's really on your mind?" He set his coffee cup down and moved to sit beside her on the sofa. "Rose, these past months working with you, getting to know you, it's been the happiest time of my life since Clara died." Her heart began to race. "It's been healing for me too." "I didn't plan this," he continued, his gray eyes earnest. "When I offered you a partnership, that's all I intended. But now—" He took her hand carefully as if she might pull away. "Now I find myself thinking about more than business when I look at you." Rose felt a rush of emotion, hope, fear, longing. "What exactly are you saying, Patrick?" "I'm saying I care for you, Rose, deeply. More than as a business partner or friend." His thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand. "I'm saying I'd like to court you properly if you're willing." Joy bloomed in Rose's chest, but caution held her back. "Patrick, my reputation is of no concern to me," he interrupted firmly. "I know who you are, Rose Nichols. I've seen your courage, your integrity, your kindness. That matters far more than gossip." Tears pricked Rose's eyes. "From the moment you stepped into my shop in Ventura and said you believed me, you've been restoring my faith in people. I never expected to find someone who would truly see me after what happened." "Is that a yes?" Patrick asked, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Rose laughed softly. "Yes, Patrick Lawson, yes." His smile widened, and slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle, questioning at first, then deepening as Rose responded, her hand coming up to touch his face. When they finally parted, both were breathless. "I've been wanting to do that for quite some time," Patrick admitted. "Why didn't you?" Rose asked. "I needed to be sure you were ready, that you were healing from Ventura." She touched his cheek gratefully. "You're a good man, Patrick Lawson." Their courtship proceeded with a wonderful sense of discovery and growing intimacy. They rode together in the mornings, Patrick showing Rose the boundaries of Pine Creek's lands. He taught her to shoot, insisting she learn to protect herself. She taught him to dance in the evenings, laughing as he counted steps under his breath. Their business partnership flourished alongside their personal relationship, each bringing complementary strengths to the ranch's operations. The Sacramento Fair in November proved to be a turning point. Their horses won several ribbons, and buyers were impressed by the professional presentation and obvious quality of Pine Creek stock. Rose charmed potential clients with her knowledge and business acumen, while Patrick's expertise earned respect from other breeders. On their last evening in Sacramento, Patrick took Rose to dinner at the city's finest restaurant. She wore her best dress, a deep blue silk that brought out the auburn highlights in her hair, and felt a warm glow at the admiration in Patrick's eyes when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Over dinner, they discussed their successful week, planning how to fulfill the orders they'd received and which breeding pairs to focus on next season. As dessert was served, Patrick grew uncharacteristically quiet. "Is something wrong?" Rose asked. "Not wrong," he said, setting down his fork. "Just important." He reached into his pocket and placed a small velvet box on the table between them. "I had planned to wait longer to give you more time, but this week, seeing you in your element, watching how everyone responded to you, I realized I don't want to wait." Rose's eyes fixed on the box, her heart pounding. "Patrick." He opened it to reveal a simple but elegant ring, a deep blue sapphire flanked by small diamonds. "It reminded me of your eyes," he said softly. "Rose Nichols, these past months have shown me what true partnership can be in business, in friendship, in love. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears blurred Rose's vision. "Are you certain? The scandal from Ventura could follow us, could hurt your standing." "Rose," Patrick interrupted gently, "when are you going to believe that I know my own mind? I believe in you, I have from the first moment. I love you and I want to build a life with you. The rest is just noise." "I love you too," she whispered, her voice catching. "Yes, Patrick. Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then leaned across the table to kiss her, heedless of the other diners. They were married in Oak Ridge on a bright December morning, with Miguel and Luisa standing as witnesses. Eliza and Dr. Winters made the journey from Ventura to attend, bringing news that several of Walter Green's business associates had been implicated in financial improprieties he had begun. The town was slowly coming to terms with the fact that their pillar of the community had been less than saintly. "Sarah Green has remarried," Eliza told Rose the night before the wedding. "A banker from San Diego. She never mentions Walter's name now." "I hope she finds happiness," Rose said, surprising herself with how sincerely she meant it. "There's no victory in her suffering." Eliza squeezed her hand. "You have a generous heart, Rose Lawson to be." The wedding itself was small but joyful. Rose wore a cream-colored gown with lace she had saved from her mother's wedding dress. Patrick couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked toward him in the small church. Their vows were simple and heartfelt, promises to honor, cherish, and believe in each other all the days of their lives. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said, beaming at the obvious love between the couple. "You may kiss your bride." Patrick gathered Rose into his arms, his kiss a promise of the life they would build together. As they turned to face their small gathering of friends, Rose felt a profound sense of peace. From the darkness of that terrible day in Ventura had come this unexpected light, a man who had believed her when no one else would, who had seen her true self beyond accusations and scandal. Life at Pine Creek Ranch took on a new rhythm after their marriage. Rose's business innovations continued to expand their reputation, and Patrick's breeding program flourished under their joint stewardship. They converted the room adjacent to their bedroom into a proper office, where they often worked together in companionable concentration, pausing occasionally to share a thought or a brief, affectionate touch. Their physical relationship deepened with the same natural ease as their emotional connection had, each discovering in the other a passionate and tender lover. Rose had never imagined such intimacy was possible, to be so completely herself with another person, to be so utterly accepted and desired. In the spring, Rose planted a garden near the house, creating a riot of colors that bloomed in succession from early spring through late fall. Patrick built her a gazebo where they could sit in the evenings, watching the sunset and planning their future. One such evening, nearly a year after they had met, Rose took Patrick's hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I have news," she said, her eyes shining. Patrick's expression transformed from confusion to wonder as he understood. "A baby! We're having a baby!" Rose nodded, laughing as he swept her into a careful embrace. "Dr. Matthews confirmed it yesterday. We should expect our child in late autumn." Patrick knelt before her, pressing a reverent kiss to her still flat abdomen. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "Your mother and father are very happy to meet you." Rose ran her fingers through his hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "Are you pleased?" He looked up at her, his eyes suspiciously bright. "More than I can possibly express." "Rose, you've given me everything I never dared hope for a true partner, a deep love, and now a family." The months of Rose's pregnancy passed in a blur of activity and anticipation. They prepared a nursery adjacent to their bedroom, Patrick insisting on building the cradle himself. He became adorably protective, constantly checking that Rose wasn't overexerting herself, though she assured him that pregnancy wasn't an illness. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him one afternoon when he insisted on carrying a basket of linens she had been about to take upstairs. "And I'm sure their husbands have been fussing over them just as long," he countered with a grin. Their son, Thomas Michael Lawson, was born on a crisp November day as the first snow of the season dusted the hills around Pine Creek. The labor was long but uncomplicated, and when Dr. Matthews placed the red-faced, squalling infant in Rose's arms, she felt a love so overwhelming it brought tears to her eyes. "He's perfect," Patrick whispered, perched on the edge of the bed beside them, one finger caught in his son's surprisingly strong grip. "Just like his mother." "He has your eyes," Rose said, tracing the baby's delicate features, "and your determined chin." "Poor child," Patrick laughed softly. "Let's hope he has your good sense to balance it out." They named him Thomas after Rose's father and Michael for Patrick's. As the baby grew, it became clear he had inherited traits from both parents: Patrick's curious nature and Rose's observant quietness, his father's ease with animals and his mother's quick smile. Pine Creek Ranch continued to prosper. Patrick's innovative breeding techniques and Rose's business acumen established them as leaders in their field. They expanded their holdings, purchasing adjacent land when it became available, and diversified into cattle as well as horses. They hired more hands, built additional housing, and became known as fair and generous employers. When Thomas was 3, Rose gave birth to a daughter they named Clara Elizabeth, honoring Patrick's sister and Rose's dear friend Eliza. The little girl had her mother's auburn hair and her father's storm-gray eyes, and from infancy showed a strong will that both challenged and delighted her parents. "She's going to be a handful," Patrick predicted after Clara, at 18 months, managed to escape her playpen for the 3rd time in a week. "Like someone else I know," Rose teased, watching him chase after their determined daughter. Life wasn't without its challenges. A severe drought tested their resources when Thomas was 5 and Clara 2. A fire started by lightning threatened their southern pastures one hot summer. And occasionally, rumors from the past surfaced, whispers about that woman from Ventura that reached them through business contacts or new acquaintances. But each challenge strengthened their partnership. The drought led them to implement innovative water conservation methods that later became standard practice in the region. The fire prompted them to create fire breaks that protected not only Pine Creek, but neighboring properties as well. And the occasional resurgence of old gossip was met with such united dignity and evident happiness that it invariably withered in the face of their reality. 5 years into their marriage, they received an unexpected letter. It was from Sarah Green, Walter's widow. Rose's hands trembled as she opened it, Patrick standing supportively at her side. "Dear Mrs. Lawson," Sarah wrote, "this letter is long overdue. After Walter's death, I was consumed by grief and anger, much of it directed at you. I couldn't bear to think that the husband I loved could be capable of what you accused him of. But time has brought clarity. Other women came forward with similar stories. His business associates revealed deceptions I had been blind to. I've had to accept that the Walter I thought I knew was not the complete man. I write now not to reopen old wounds but to close them. I was wrong to vilify you publicly, to encourage others to shun you. You were a victim of my husband's actions, just as surely as I was a victim of his deceptions. For the pain I added to what you already suffered, I sincerely apologize. I've remarried and found happiness I didn't think possible after such betrayal. I hope you have found the same. With sincere regrets and good wishes for your future, Sarah Barrett, formerly Green." Rose folded the letter carefully, tears in her eyes. After all this time, Patrick wrapped his arms around her. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said, leaning into his embrace. "It's just, I never expected this, to be believed by her of all people." "Truth has a weight that eventually tips even the most stubborn scales," Patrick said. "Will you write back?" Rose nodded. "I think I should. It couldn't have been easy for her to send this." Her reply was brief but heartfelt, thanking Sarah for her courage in reaching out and expressing genuine wishes for her continued happiness. "The past has shaped us both," Rose wrote, "but it need not define our futures. I have found extraordinary joy with my husband and children, and I sincerely hope your new marriage brings you the same." Sending that letter felt like closing a chapter that had been left unfinished. That night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness, Rose traced Patrick's features with gentle fingers. "You ever think about how unlikely our meeting was?" she asked. "If you hadn't been tracking Walter Green, if you hadn't been passing my shop at that exact moment." "I've thought about it," Patrick admitted. "The terrible events that brought us together. I can't regret them, not when they led to this. Does that make me a bad person?" "No," Rose said softly. "It makes you human. We can acknowledge the darkness that came before without letting it overshadow the light we've found." He kissed her forehead. "You always find the right words." "Not always," she smiled. "But I try." As the years passed, their family and their ranch continued to flourish. Thomas grew into a thoughtful young man with his father's affinity for horses and his mother's head for business. Clara became a spirited, independent girl who could ride as well as any boy in the county and still charm everyone she met with her quick wit and warm heart. A third child, Andrew James, arrived when Thomas was 8 and Clara 5. Completing their family with his sunny disposition and uncanny ability to find mischief. Rose expanded her interests beyond the ranch, becoming involved in Oak Ridge's development. She helped establish the town's first proper library, served on the school board, and mentored young women interested in business. Patrick's breeding expertise made him a sought-after judge at horse shows throughout California, and he wrote a well-regarded book on horse husbandry that brought visitors to Pine Creek from as far away as Europe. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Patrick surprised Rose with a trip to San Francisco, their first real vacation since their honeymoon. They left the children in Luisa and Miguel's capable hands and spent a glorious week exploring the vibrant city, attending the theater, dining in fine restaurants, and simply enjoying uninterrupted time together. On their last evening, they walked along the harbor, watching ships come and go in the golden light of sunset. Patrick pulled Rose close, kissing her temple. "Happy?" he asked. "Completely," she assured him. "Though I miss the children. They're probably turning Pine Creek upside down as we speak," he chuckled. "Probably," she agreed. "But Lewisa can handle them. She handled you all those years, after all," he laughed, the sound warm in the sea air. "True enough. Though I was never as much trouble as our Clara." They found a quiet bench overlooking the bay, the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk deepened. 10 years, Patrick mused. Sometimes it feels like just yesterday I walked into your shop in Ventura. Other times it feels like we've always been together. "I know what you mean," Rose said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I can barely remember my life before you said those words. I believe you. They changed everything." Patrick turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Rose Lawson, believing in you has been the easiest and best decision of my life. Every day with you confirms it. Even when I'm being stubborn about the accounts," she teased. "Especially then," he grinned. "Your stubbornness and my determination. Poor Thomas is doomed to be the most persistent man in California." They laughed together, then fell into a comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. "What do you think the next 10 years will bring?" Rose asked eventually. Patrick considered this. Thomas will be 20, probably running half the ranch operations by then. Clara will be having every eligible young man in 3 counties tied in knots. Andrew will have invented some impossible contraption that either makes us rich or burns down the barn. And us? Rose prompted. "Us?" Patrick smiled, the same smile that had first won her heart, a little crooked, completely genuine. "We'll be exactly as we are now, partner, side by side, facing whatever comes together, believing in each other until the very end." Rose kissed him then, in full view of anyone passing by, not caring a whit for propriety. Because Patrick was right, they would face whatever came together, secure in the knowledge that they had found in each other not just love, but something rarer still, complete and unwavering belief. As they returned to Pine Creek the following week, the ranch appearing over the crest of the familiar hills, Rose felt the rightness of it all settle in her bones. This place, these people, this life they had built together, it had all begun with those simple, powerful words spoken by a stranger who became her champion, her partner, her love. "I believe you." 3 words that had changed everything. 3 words that had given her not just a second chance, but a life beyond anything she could have imagined that terrible day in Ventura. 3 words that reminded her, even now, that sometimes the darkest moments could lead to the brightest futures if only someone was willing to stand beside you and say, "I believe you." And as Patrick helped her down from the wagon, their children running to greet them with excited stories and fierce hugs, Rose knew with absolute certainty that all of this was what belief could build. A home, a family, a love that would outlast even the whispers of the past.